Chapter 618. Two large elongated hands overlapped upon Yudhir's own, which clutched at his thighs. The sensation of skin sliding over his fingers and the back of his hand made him momentarily catch his breath. At that moment, his lower body pushed upward and the swollen organ forcibly penetrated the parted crevice. In that instant, it seemed as if all his senses were solely devoted to this connection. Though his eyes could see, his mind couldn't register, and the sounds reaching his ears held no meaning. The pressure on his chest from the lifted posture and the urgent need for breath, his thoughts, even his own identity, were all forgotten. Yudhir wholly felt the tightness as the opening stretched to its limit, welcoming what he had long awaited. The tingling sensation as it made way deeper and deeper, shivering with excitement. Time seemed to slow. The girth and shape of the organ inside him, every pulsating vein and throbbing heartbeat was perceived with excruciating clarity. Finally, when it felt like it was tapping against the very end of his insides, Yudhir heard his own loud moan, distant as the ejaculate forcefully shot through his torso and chest. The end of the wall within. In this life, when Kishir first overlapped with him, he never crossed that wall. It wasn't that he couldn't, but rather he knew Yudhir's limits better than Yudhir himself did. Though he could have pushed further, he always stopped just before, sensing exactly where the end lay. However, there was no need to push further deliberately. As their bodies merged more over time, Yudhir's tolerance surprisingly increased. And now, without any pain, the depths within opened wide, welcoming the organ pressing deeply against the wall's end. Breathing was hard with the fullness inside, almost as if his belly had swollen up to his navel. With each short breath, the sensation of the organ pressing against the end of his wall briefly clouded his mind. But Yudhir relished this feeling, having finally obtained what he desired. Gasping like a beast that had overeaten, Yudhir clenched his teeth and reached down to the joint area. That slight movement caused a deep tightening within. His fingers, smeared in various fluids, caught the still not fully entered shaft and the soft ends of pubic hair. Indeed, his suspicion turned to certainty. Even though it had reached the wall's end, there was still more. Confirming this, Yudhir felt a surge of thrill and joy inside his swollen belly. Then, at last, a long breath escaped Kishir. The shockingly deep and rapid penetration they both felt seemed like a very long time to savor. It wasn't only Yudhir who felt this way. Kishir, removing Yudhir's hand, explored the joint area, intertwined their fingers, and drew them towards his lips. The rough fingertips, now exposed as their gloves were removed, received a brief kiss. Simultaneously, their bodies began to tremble. It was a movement more rugged than ever before. There was no time to synchronize and move together to the rhythm, such was the intensity. Yet, there was no sense of rejection. The sensations, which would usually feel too intense, were now surprisingly pleasant. If possible, he wanted the man intertwined with him to be even more consumed by deep desires, to be moved by the same emotions, urging him on even more. Thus, Yudhir allowed the sounds erupting from his mouth to burst forth unrestrained. He made no attempt to hold back and suppress any of it. Like a horse running freely on a path without any fences, their bodies intertwined and swayed. He shivered at the sensation of being filled and emptied ceaselessly. This was what he had desired. This was the very sensation he had vaguely longed for. In a parched thirst that knew no quenching, the flames that had only been rising were now being sated by a torrential downpour, greeting with jubilation. Though it felt like little movement had been made, another intense climax surged up to the crown of his head. Yudhir, feeling strength gather in their abdomen, tightened his legs around the man's waist. Even if he couldn't move in rhythm, this alone made the penetration much deeper, the thick tip pushing further into the walls than before. Yudhir shuddered, shaking his head. Droplets of sweat splashed, dampening his hair. Even the sensation of teeth sinking into his exposed neck felt like an intense pleasure. When his inside was finally pushed to its limit, Either felt his vision blur and the area between his legs grow wet. The ejaculate that spurted from the trembling member, though thinner than before, was just as forceful. However, this climax was not just at the front. As semen fell in front, the massive member that was tightly held in the back was also twisting and tightening, bringing a searing heat inside. This was the explosion of internal mucus that occurs when an omega awakener reaches the pinnacle of climax. The clear mucus that burst forth as he climaxed spurted and flowed between the joint parts, soaking his buttocks. It was an indescribable pleasure. His vision altered between darkness and light, either feeling the hot sensation thrusting deep within and withdrawing, thought blankly. More. In response to his desire, Kishir did not cease his movements even as Yudhir shivered in climax. Moving as if Yudhir's desire were his own, the man embraced Yudhir deeply. His lips ceaselessly stole kisses from Yudhir's cheeks, eyes, nose, and lips. Though his movements lacked Yudhir's leisure, there was a desperate, almost poignant feeling as if not having a part of the other's body in his mouth meant that. Yudhir responded to these kisses as best as he could, embracing Kishir's back. That was all he could do now. Their sweat-soaked fingertips, feeling the internal thrusting movements, twitched and flexed as if struck by lightning, sometimes slipping and scratching down the back in an ability to withstand the pleasure. But Kishir never loosened his embrace around Yudhir. Yudhir felt the sensation of swelling inside as the moving member within him grew increasingly engorged. The inside of his belly, filled more tightly than ever, felt as though it might burst. Yet the pleasure was so intense, it was as if his mind was melting. Without a moment to adjust to the rhythm, his body twitched, his hips gyrated, and as he clenched his legs wrapped around the man, the latter's lips forcefully sucked in Yudhir's lower lip. As he reflexively parted his lips, the approaching tongue invaded Yudhir's mouth deeper than ever before. Simultaneously, with a dizzying surge of pleasure causing his hips to buck upwards, Kishir's waist, which had been retreated, now thrust forward with most powerful force he had exerted thus far. The thick tip finally pierced through the wall of his belly, unleashing a ferocious pleasure. Amidst a storm of sensations so intense it felt as if it might pierce his heart. His insides were soaked with a heat not his own. Yudhir trembled as if impaled, unable to make a sound. At that moment, his gaze was stolen by the face of the man in the darkness, wrinkling his brow in the height of pleasure. The face of Kishir Lahore, accustomed to suppressing even his pleasure to avoid being excessively rough, was not present here. Yudhir observed, through the sweat-drenched golden hair in the night's darkness, the man's eyes honestly crumbling in the moment of climax. He saw the rough breath and emotion that instinctively revealed itself, then seemed to hide away, only to be fully released when their eyes met. It was a face Kishir had never shown Yudhir in all their previous encounters. It seemed as if his instincts made a quiet swallowing sound in his darkened mind. How could any physical pleasure compare to the feeling of a parched earth finally drinking water? Yudhir exhaled a long breath within the immense satisfaction. The man beneath him opened his eyes again. The man, looking down at Yudhir, laughing in satisfaction, pierced below him, similarly lifted the corners of his lips in a fierce smile. In that moment, all the elegance that usually seeped through and all the mask hidden beneath his smile vanished from his face. The man pulled Yudhir's relaxed legs onto his shoulders. Even after climaxing, his member, undiminished in vigor, began to thrust vigorously into Yudhir's belly once again. Yudhir embraced the man's neck, welcoming the moment. The second time was even more intense than the first. The member, having once breached the wall, now repeatedly crossed its boundary with unabated ferocity. With each thrust came immense shock and strength flooded his body. But so too did immense pleasure. Each time Yudha's legs, slick with sweat, almost slid off the shoulder, Kishi repeatedly grasped them, restoring them to their original position. Oh my gosh, I feel like intruding reading all this. Oh my god.